Bleeding purple and gold. From the heart of Los Angeles, this is the LakersNation.com podcast with your host, Trevor Lane.
Welcome to today's show. As always, we are powered by CLNS Media and LakersNation.com, your one-stop shop for all things Lakers. We are coming to you from Las Vegas. We're out here at Summer League covering the Lakers, watching Mo Wagner and Svi Mikhailuk and Josh Hart put on quite a display the other night when they took out the Philadelphia 76ers. So we brought in Alan Slewa of ESPN to help us break everything down and talk about some recent happenings in the free agent market. Alan, thanks so much for jumping on here.
Thanks for having me on, Trevor.
So just happened a few hours ago, Brook Lopez has agreed to a one-year biannual exception deal, which means he's going to be getting $3.4 million from the Milwaukee Bucks. Lakers fans are reacting online, not too pleased, kind of hurts. What was your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, I think, before even we started the podcast, you just feel like, okay, well, there's got to be another plan. There's got to be something else that the Lakers have in mind, because that's as low of a contract as you're going to get in the league. And Brook Lopez, obviously he's not Hakeem Olajuwon,
but former All-Star.
Former All-Star, and had a good role with the Lakers last year. There might be times where you get frustrated, man, I wish Brook did this or I wish Brook did that. But the reality is he had a good season for the Lakers. And to get him at 1 year, just under $3.5 million, and we talked a little bit about this as well. Boogie Cousins, that's another 1 year deal, went to the Warriors.
Yep.
You have to imagine that the Lakers have a plan for filling up that void or filling up that spot, or they're going to depend a lot on a rookie in Mo Wagner to fill in that role along with JaVale McGee.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people commenting online saying, hey, Mo Wagner, he's going to be getting these minutes and everything. Personally, I'm not that comfortable with just assuming a rookie can step into a role like that. I mean, obviously, JaVale McGee is a veteran. He's been there. He has a designated role in this league as a rim protector. But as far as Wagner goes, assuming that he can fill that Brook Lopez void and really be the stretch five that the team needs, I think that's a little bit of a dangerous assumption. What's your take on that?
You're asking for a lot, right? You're asking for a lot from a really young player, and we got a chance to watch him up close yesterday at the Lakers Summer League game, and you could tell that he's got a skill set. He's certainly one of those bigs that in today's NBA can thrive, but typically that doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take a few years for him to develop to where he understands the pace of the NBA game, the style of the NBA game, the grind of an 82-game stretch. So it's going to be a lot to ask for. But the one thing, the one thing I'd say on Magic and Pelinka and obviously Coach Luke Walton and the whole crew is they've had some success with using young kids early, especially players that have good experience in college. So by the time they come to the NBA, they're more NBA ready. And I'm referring to Josh Hart, and I'm referring to obviously Kyle Kuzma, that maybe they feel this is one of those players that they can put in right away and he can start contributing.
Sure, and Mo Wagner, I believe he's only making about $1.7 million. So if you can get some real center minutes out of him, then that's a pretty quality bargain that you've got there. But let's assume that maybe the Lakers do want to continue looking on the free agent market. We know they've got about $5 million left. There's really not a whole lot left. We know
it's drying up.
Yeah, it really is. Clint Capella is a restricted free agent. Any chance you think that happens, or is that just gone because of that restricted tag?
That has to be the Rockets really screwing something up, right?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. I think I've never thought. I think Clint Capella is certainly capitalizing on the fact that Chris Paul, James Harden, D'Antoni's system, but he thought he was going to be getting a good amount of cash this upcoming summer, and that hasn't been the case yet. I think it'd be really tough to get a guy like Capella, especially with the Lakers. It still looks like everything that they're trying to do is free up cap space again for 2019.
Right.
All these deals that they've got with Lance Stevenson and Rajon Rondo and JaVale McGee, all these other players, they're all one-year deals. So that one might be a little bit of a stretch. I would say that's difficult. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that if you're going to go after Clint Capella, what you would have to do is stretch Luol Deng's contract to free up that extra $10 million in space, and then you'd have about $15 million to go after him with, and maybe that's enough to make Houston blink. We know that they're pretty capped out because they just gave Chris Paul that big contract. But if you do that, you're bound to offer at least a 3-year deal because it's a restricted contract. So then you're talking about killing some of that cap space that you created by letting Julius Randle go and therefore not being able to chase Kawhi Leonard or Klay Thompson or any of those other max guys. So it doesn't feel like that's the way the Lakers want to go.
I don't think there's any indication that whatever they do with these remaining dollars would be something that would hand tie them for next year. I mean, Randall's a perfect example. I mean, if you were going to spend that type of money, it was going to be over 1 year, why don't you just give Julius Randle that money? So I don't know if that's probably something that they feel is in their plans.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So some of the cheaper options that are still out there would be, and again, it's drying up quickly. The center market is almost non-existent. Alex Len, who was waived by the Phoenix Suns, and Channing Frye, who, of course, finished up the season with the Lakers last year, veteran, been around for a long, long time. Either of them interest you at all if you're the Lakers?
It's funny how quick Alex Len's name went from a potential to being waived by the Phoenix Suns. Maybe that's a name. I know Channing Frye's got a great relationship with Coach Luke Walton. I know he's a stretch five, but it feels like they need somebody that'd be a little bit larger of a presence. Len obviously probably fits that mold better than a Channing Frye would. But we'll see what happens. Maybe that's not a position that they're too focused or key in on. Maybe it's going to be another roster spot that they're more focused on. But the center spot, if the Lakers come out with what they got, obviously JaVale McGee and obviously their Mo Wagner, their young rookie, that's going to be probably the thinnest spot that the Lakers have on the roster.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and we got to throw in Ivica Zubac, whose contract they picked up $1.5 million. But what do you think? I mean, if you're relying on JaVale McGee to be your starting center. Let's say you're going to play him 15 to 20 minutes a night and then run small ball maybe the rest of the time. Do you think that's a solid plan? I know there have been some serious concern about that from what I've seen from Lakers fans online.
I think it's fair concern. Yeah. I think the reality is what they've done this summer has been fantastic. I mean, all the moves that they've made, and whether you're a huge fan of the Rondo, the Lance Stevenson, those types of moves, but you're also trying to fill up your roster, kind of trying to put these pieces together, where I think 2019 things will make a lot more sense. Right. And they only have so much control. Obviously, LeBron James coming to the Lakers, and you're going to mix in a lot of these young kids. They've had a great summer, but to look at just the center spot and say, well, this is going to be their weakest link, kind of got to roll with the punches. It's almost like you weigh the positives that have happened over the summer to now sitting in a spot where you're saying, well, it's Alex Len or it's JaVale McGee or it's some of these other players, some of them available, some of them already on the Lakers roster. I think it's a much better conversation to have than we were having 2 weeks ago, where you're wondering, is somebody going to come take one of those max caps?
Yeah, right.
So I think it's probably a work in progress.
Yeah, you're right. If you pin back a bit here, and I know some fans have not been happy with the whole Lance Stevenson thing and Rondo and all these additions, but pull back and you think about where things were when Paul George said no.
Yeah.
For that period of whatever it was, 24 hours or so before we heard about LeBron. I mean, obviously things are in a better position than they were then, but still, when you look at that center spot, there's got to be concern. I mean, Randall being a Randall, and between Randall and Lopez, they ate up probably 80-90% of the minutes at center.
You're right.
And now you're replacing him with JaVale McGee and maybe Ivica Zubac and perhaps Mo Wagner.
Well, and just from the last couple of months, so Larry Nance Jr. no longer on the team, Thomas Bryant they waived, like you just mentioned, Julius Randle and Brook Lopez. So those are four guys. I think there was a point where we had it was almost like there was too much in that position. Now all of a sudden you're as thin as you probably have ever been.
Absolutely. And when you look at it too, Brook Lopez, he's talked about at his exit interview, he talked about potentially taking less to sign with the Lakers. I mean, he's from the area, he's from Hollywood.
Yeah.
This is where he wanted to be. $3.4 million. That seems to indicate that the Lakers weren't really offering him much, if anything. I mean, perhaps he just isn't part of the future plan, which instantly begs the question, could potentially be a Carmelo Anthony signing be on the way.
Yeah, that's where I think both of us were saying to ourselves, well, if it's not Brook Lopez,
right,
if it's not some of these other options that were out there, then there must be a plan that they have in mind. And it could very well be Carmelo Anthony. Even that, we were just talking about the Houston Rockets and what they're going to do with Clint Capella and what they can afford and everything else. Granted, he's restricted. I'm sure the Rockets are going to be fighting for Carmelo Anthony as well. Yep. I did my Lakers talk show yesterday on ESPN LA, and that was a big part of the conversation. Do you want Carmelo Anthony a part of this team? And if some Laker fans were complaining about Rajon Rondo and Lance Stevenson and everything else, or not even complaining, but just wondering, hey, how's this all going to work?
Right.
How is this dynamic going to make sense? Can these guys all work together with LeBron and the young kids? Well, that would be another curveball you'd be throwing in Carmelo Anthony. This has been my thoughts on Carmelo. I think he's had value in the league. I think he's been a player that has found a way to be kind of one of the best isolation basketball players in the league for a long time. My problem with Carmelo is when he exited, when he was leaving the Oklahoma City Thunder, I just listened to some of his press conferences, and everything seemed to be about him. He wasn't going to take a role off the bench.
Right.
He wasn't going to do things that I think he felt were coming more from an ego standpoint rather than what's in the best interest of this organization. The money part I never care about. If somebody's going to pay him $28 million, then good for him, go make your money. But what his role is with the team and how he can be of benefit on the court, off the court, that's the one thing with Carmelo I've never been crazy about. And I think listening to him in Oklahoma City, which is probably a big reason why he's no longer with the Thunder, he wasn't willing to do things that were in the best interests of the organization. That's what worries me about Carmelo. He comes to a team like the Lakers where you got a young Kyle Kuzma, you got a young Brandon Ingram. I would love to see those guys flourish this year, play with LeBron, play with Rondo, play with Lonzo, really get a bulk of those minutes from the small forward or power forward position, just depending on how it all kind of pans out. And then if Carmelo came, now all of a sudden what happens? Does he take that same mentality he had with the Thunder where he's like, no, I want to be in crunch time. No, I want to be in to start the game.
Right.
That to me is what would that's my hesitation with Carmelo.
Yeah, and that's certainly fair. I mean, can he be a team player? Would LeBron's presence there be enough to sort of rein in Carmelo Anthony? That would be a risk the Lakers would have to take. But then, I mean, you mentioned with these signings that they've had, these aren't guys who are known for their having a docile temperament or the kind of guys that just kind of go with the flow. I mean, Rondo and Lance Stevenson, they've had issues in the past. Ramona Shelburne was on ESPN the other day, or wrote a piece that basically said this is all part of the Lakers' plan, that even though everybody's in an uproar over the lack of three-point shooting that they have right now, that this was what they had planned to do going into it. What's your take? Is this a good plan? These signings, is this playing out the way that they want, or is this just kind of what they had to do because of the way the market went?
I think about it a lot. I think there are times where certain moves are made by certain organizations, and it's very easy to question those moves. Then I think there's other times where you might have more faith in the organization or the people running the organization, where somebody might not fit in one team, but then all of a sudden he's a part of the New England Patriots, and the Patriots find a way to make it work.
Right.
Lakers are not at that point.
No.
But I do feel like over a year and a half with Magic and Pelinka, and I think the stability that they're creating and the culture that they're creating, I think they are most certainly confident in themselves that we will make sure that whoever comes to our team understands their role, understands what we're looking for, and if we feel comfortable with all that stuff, we'll find a way to make it work. And the only reason why I set it up that way is because I'm sure if Carmelo Anthony sits down with the Lakers brass and they have a conversation, it's not going to be, what does Carmelo Anthony want?
Right.
It's going to be, this is how we are going to use you. This is how we envision you being with this team. If that makes sense to you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. We'll go look at other options. And I feel like that's how the Lakers are. I feel like they're getting to that point where even these young kids are a perfect example. Last year, Julius Randle, they've kind of been open to him if they're not sure what his plan is going to be. Right. But if you're on this team, this is what we're looking for and this is what we want. And Randle delivered. Randle did exactly what they asked him to do. But he still wasn't part of the plan. And I don't think the Lakers are... I don't think they're not open or they're not communicating what their vision is and what they're hoping that they certain individuals are going to accomplish. So I kind of put Carmelo in that category. I put Rondo in that category, Lance Stevenson. I'm sure that all of these guys, when they sit down, have these conversations with the Lakers, there's a clear path of what the Lakers want from them and how they can help them in the process.
Yeah, Rondo in his first press conference said all the right things about being a mentor, not caring about whether or not he came off the bench. And I guess ultimately with Carmelo, it's going to be determined whether or not he's willing to do those things. Randle, circling back to him, it appears was not willing to take a different role, and that is what led to the Lakers eventually saying, okay, we'll see you later, even though it meant losing an asset that they spent the 7th overall pick in 2014 on. In terms of building that culture and following their plan, they were willing to watch that walk out the door if it wasn't fitting, if he wasn't willing to do what they wanted him to do. It
kind of also shows you that the organization is they're taking chances, and I mean taking chances as in not just bringing guys in, but not re-signing guys, right? Because if Julius Randle
at $9 million,
it could come back to haunt them. And what I mean by haunt them is he's in the Western Conference. He's going to play with the Pelicans with Anthony Davis, which seems like a fantastic fit.
It's perfect.
Perfect. Mirotic at the 3, Randle or Anthony Davis at 4 and 5, however they figure to do that. And it could come back and haunt them. But I think at the same time, Lakers are willing to take those chances as well, saying to themselves that we were just talking about 2019, that they're thinking bigger picture, that as much as we'd like Randle, I think what was it, a 1-year, $12 million offer that they were floating with Julius Randle.
Right, yeah, that would have been his qualifying offer.
And Randle probably thought, my future is not here. My future is not here, right? Like this organization is making it clear that as much as they may like me personally and professionally and all that stuff, that I'm not going to be a long-term bet for the Los Angeles Lakers. So I think there's a lot to do with the front office having confidence in themselves that Randle, yes, we had to see go, but it's worth for us to have Randle walk away knowing that 2019, Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving, max player guys who are all-star caliber players, you got a better shot at, or you have a good shot at getting one of them. You can't risk losing Julius Randle in that predicament.
Sure, yeah, definitely. And Randle ends up going for $9 million. He was eating up $12.4 million in cap space. That was his cap hold. He had a qualifying offer somewhere in the mid $5 million range. Didn't want to take that, obviously. Winds up getting a 2-year, $18 million deal, $9 per year, player option on the second year.
Crazy how quick all the money just went.
It's amazing.
The Randle part. I mean, how much time, I don't know about you, but I was spending a lot of time. I was bringing on guys saying, all right, these are all the cap people. What's Randle's value going into this offseason? I don't think I really heard a number below $14 to $16 million.
I didn't either.
On an annual basis, and that teams are going to come big. That Mavs are going to come.
Maverick, that was the big one.
The Hawks are going to come. Teams like that, just as examples, right? And then he signs 2 years, $18 million total. It's the adjustment from a couple years ago that the NBA has gone through, and we know it better than anybody else because of Luol Deng and Timofey Mozgov. The adjustment that the league has is kind of still in the process of is pretty so drastic, I guess you can say.
Absolutely, and that's my biggest concern with the Randle thing is, did they just miss out on a big opportunity here? Because the market isn't like this very often, where it's such a buyer's market. In addition to having Randle as a restricted free agent, for years Lakers fans have been looking at, okay, we've got a little bit of cap space. We'd really like to have this guy. Oh, but he's restricted. Looking down the list of how many guys are restricted and therefore kind of off limits.
They don't usually leave their team.
Yeah. They don't usually leave. So now the Lakers finally found themselves in that advantageous situation where they've got a player who's restricted, and then they didn't really seize that opportunity with him. They could have got something worked out that would have really been a team-friendly contract. But instead, because the fit wasn't there or whatever wasn't working out, and I guess we should mention that the relationship with his agent probably wasn't great, given that Aaron Mintz, his agent, also represents D'Angelo Russell and Paul George, and where there's smoke, there's fire there. So they ultimately decided to move on, and they took a lot of that money that they saved on Randle and gave it to Rajon Rondo.
Yeah. By the way, there's probably a lot more to that we'll never know. Yep. We'll never know when it comes to some of these behind the scenes conversations. Right. We have no idea when Rob Pelinka was an agent and Aaron Mintz was an agent, if there was any confrontation. And this is obviously just us kind of chattering, but that could be a part of it as well. That could be the Lakers. Still, I would always still think that they would do whatever they believe is in their best interest. And I think the trade of D'Angelo Russell just made sense for the organization. Timofey Mozgov, that contract is gone, and I don't know how crazy the Lakers were about, obviously D'Angelo Russell and what maybe they felt he brings to the table. Paul George, Lakers didn't have control of whether Paul George was going to come or he wasn't, but there's that three series, that docuseries that they had on ESPN, and as we got to episode 2, I'm like, I don't think Paul George is coming.
I know.
As that kind of unfolded or whatever, and Aaron Mintz is in that for most of that docuseries, and then obviously here with Julius Randle, we'll never know if there's something more to it, but you're right. That's something that the Lakers literally just gambled on. We don't know if in a couple years we're going to look back and say, why the hell did we let Julius Randle go? Or if next summer in 2019 that money is being used on Kawhi Leonard and the Lakers are building for a championship run, and we sit back and say, damn, the Lakers really had the vision. We'll just have to wait and see.
That's a great point, because when D'Angelo Russell was traded last summer, there were a lot of people who were up in arms saying, why did you just sacrifice an asset like D'Angelo Russell, the former number 2 overall pick, in order to clear Timofey Mozgov? Well, look at what it led to now. Mm-hmm. You don't move D'Angelo Russell to get out of Timofey Mozgov's contract. No LeBron James. So who knows what the end game is here, and maybe it does pay off.
I was ready to start a GoFundMe page, and I was more than happy to help send D'Angelo Russell to the Brooklyn Nets.
You were going to pay to send it to ship him over there?
No problem. I was ready to pay the flight.
Not a fan of D'Angelo Russell.
I wasn't crazy about D'Angelo. Mm-hmm. I really wasn't. For me, and I think the one thing I really like about what the Lakers are building right now, and you look, D'Angelo Russell was 19, 20 years old when he got shipped out, so who knows how much he's really been shown the ropes, competitiveness. Right. Like, he probably needed guidance as much as any other. And the Lakers, I don't think, did him any favors when he was here in those 2 years that he was here. Kobe's retirement, 2 different front offices, 2 different coaches. So it's not like the Lakers were putting him in a perfect platform to succeed. Nope. But I think where the organization is today, obviously the writing, once they knew they had the number 2 pick, they were going to draft Lonzo Ball. I was all in to say, you know what, D'Angelo goes. He just wasn't my specific cup of tea, and other people liked him. If he succeeds in Brooklyn, good for him.
Just from talking to people, and I won't get into any specifics, but from talking to people who were closer to D'Angelo Russell than I am personally, people who worked out with him, have done things with him, I haven't spoken to anyone that was too sad about him going.
Yeah,
and I think that's telling.
Safe to say.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about Rondo. Because that's a little bit of a, well, Lakers fans obviously remember him as a Celtics guy.
Yeah.
And there's been questions about the fit. There's this idea out there that Rondo absolutely can't shoot, and so he's not a good fit with the team. And there's questions about his personality and everything. But I personally kind of like the signing. But I want to get your take. What do you think about going and adding Rajon Rondo?
So I've always been a fan of Rondo. I mean, I thought he was so key to that Lakers Celtics and the Celtics run they had with KG and Ray Allen. So easy not to talk about him. Talked about Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. Rajon Rondo was such a key. That was your quarterback, and he might not be out there throwing 500 yards, but he's hitting the corner, or he's hitting that slot receiver perfectly. He just does all those small things so well that I thought was so key to that Celtics run. A couple years ago, the Chicago Bulls were playing the Boston Celtics. He was a Bull with Jimmy Butler.
Right.
They go up 2-0. They win the first 2 games in Boston. He gets injured. They lose 4 games in a row. And the only reason why I'm pointing this out, I think it just shows his value, especially during the playoffs. The Pelicans will miss Rajon Rondo.
Oh, absolutely.
Not having him as a point guard, now Drew Holiday's
going to miss him.
I mean, the way he kind of orchestrated the offense, and defensively he's a good player as well. I like Rondo for all those reasons, but why I really like Rondo on the Lakers is I think he's going to push Lonzo. I think that's important that Lonzo Ball understands that, look, this position isn't just handed to me. That doesn't mean I question Lonzo Ball's heart or anything like that.
No.
I just think anytime you have competition, it'll be good for him. And to have a player who's had this many playoff runs, this much experience, has been in championships, has won NBA Finals, I think how is that going to hurt Rajon Rondo or Brandon Ingram or any of these players? I think he's just going to offer wisdom because he's been in the game for so long, but I think his competitive nature is going to push a lot of these guys, and specifically Lonzo Ball.
Absolutely. You know what? Rondo is the guy that has been, Rondo and the Lakers have been circling each other for what feels like forever now. There have been rumors for a long time that Rondo's coming to the Lakers. You think back to the picture of Kobe Bryant and Rajon Rondo eating breakfast together. And that was years ago. I don't even remember the exact year. But now they've finally actually linked up. And my initial concern was always Rondo, if you put him with Lonzo Ball, Rondo is such a different point guard. He's the kind of guy that probes into the paint, dribbles through, tries to get the defense to warp to how he wants it, and then he makes the pass. So he's pounding the ball quite a bit, and Lonzo is not that. But then I did some research, and I went back and started looking at this Pelicans team this last season, and when DeMarcus Cousins went out, they sped up their pace. I mean, they pushed the turbo button and took off. And you saw Rajon Rondo throwing a lot of hit-ahead passes, very similar to the way that Lonzo Ball does, giving the ball up early in the shot clock, too, in order to orchestrate things. So I think there's a real argument to be made that he actually is a good fit and can be a continuation of the way that Lonzo Ball actually plays. The question still exists, though, about his shooting. Are you worried about that, especially considering that the Lakers haven't added other free agent shooters?
So I think that's I think everybody's concern right now. The Lakers is, well, where are you going to get your points from the outside? So you got guys that could all pass. I joked around yesterday. I'm like, these guys are going to pass, and the shot clock's going to run out. Rondo's going to pass it to LeBron. LeBron's going to throw it over to Lonzo. That's a legitimate concern. But I think one of the things that the Lakers can do to it's easy to I guess you could say just highlight some of the pieces that have come and the people who are not natural scorers. They're more facilitators. That's going to give, I think, in my opinion, Ingram a lot more opportunity to be more of an offensive player for the Lakers. Kuzma more of an opportunity to be an offensive player. I think LeBron, if how they're going to use LeBron will be a little different, where LeBron doesn't have to have the ball in his hand the entire time. That might play to your advantage now because I think LeBron there's a couple reasons why he's had the ball. Number one, that's how he's operated. Right. Number two, he's the best player in the world. So to have the best player in the world have the ball as much as he does, that's a good thing. But I think where he is in his career right now, it will be nice to see LeBron just run in the wing, post up a little bit.
Yep.
If LeBron's going to make passes, it doesn't have to be from atop the key. It can be actually from the low post. So I think the Lakers are going to have to depend on the Ingrams, the Kuzmas, some of these other players. And then it's up to Lonzo Ball to kind of really take that next level to his game where it's not just passing. And I'm not saying he's got to fire 25-footers. Get to the basket, try and get easy buckets, get to the free throw line, hit your free throws. Hopefully this is all just something that forces these guys to be better at some of their holes, Lonzo being the highlight of that.
Yeah, and LeBron can certainly help with all that because if you're thinking about, if you're defending the Lakers and LeBron James is on the floor and Lonzo has it or Rondo has it or somebody like that, and something breaks down and a player gets into the paint, you've got to have that in the back of your head. That's LeBron freaking. That's LeBron freaking James.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care if he's just playing the wing or whatever. If he doesn't have the ball a lot, you're not leaving LeBron James.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to open up the floor quite a bit for these young guys, and maybe they are able to make a leap there.
And Trev, that's the argument Laker fans are making too. They're saying, well, that's why Carmelo would fit on the Lakers, is because you have all these passers. You don't have enough spot-up shooters. We saw his fee yesterday.
Oh, man.
I mean, I think he had 17 points yesterday, 4 3-pointers, something along those lines. But catch-and-shoot guy that can come off screens, and that makes you think of, today's NBA, there's a lot of players that can create for themselves, and then there's players that are just knockdown shooters. J.J. Redick, Kyle Korver, and I'm not saying that's what he is, but the nice thing is they drafted 2 players too that could shoot, that can hit free throws, and that's not something that the Lakers have been, obviously known for. Certainly not last year. I think they were 29th in 3-point shooting
and dead last in free throws.
So those are areas that they need to improve. But I will say the one good thing is you also have a team that is coming into the Western Conference where they're going to kind of push teams around a little bit. They're going to be much more physical. They're going to play defense. So maybe part of the strategy is let's make other teams who are so comfortable on offense be a little bit more uncomfortable, but then they got to figure it out on the offensive side.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about making teams uncomfortable, I think we got to talk about Lance Stevenson. I mean, he is a pest. He's the guy that just gets under people's skin. Statistically, he hasn't been a very good basketball player lately. Defensively, his advanced numbers aren't living up to his reputation. Offensively, he isn't doing much shooting from outside. So I think that's been the biggest question mark that fans have had regarding the Lakers signings has been Lance Stevenson. What is your take? Do you think that was a good pickup? And we know that LeBron has had wars with him and supposedly called Lance Stevenson to get him on board.
So I think if you look at the lineup, or if you look at some of the players, let's just look at Rondo and Lance Stevenson specifically. They obviously brought in guys that have gone through some battles.
Right.
They brought in guys that have been in big playoff games, have had big playoff moments. Do not fear anybody in the NBA. Lance Stevenson's not going to back down from a defensive matchup or anything like that. Right. So I think there's a toughness that the Lakers brought. Lance is going to be coming off the bench, so he's not going to be a starter, for the Lakers. That's certainly a position that Ingram's going to have. Another, one guy that we actually have not talked about from a shooting perspective. Maybe KCP can be that guy that obviously. the way the season ended, that momentum continues because he did have a nice stretch there for a couple of months for the Lakers. But I think to know that Lance Stevenson's going to come off the bench, more than likely Rajon Rondo is going to be coming off the bench. Some of these additions that they brought in, to me, just kind of highlight that these are depth guys. They're not going to be guys that you're depending on for 4 quarters or anything like that. They're all one-year players as well. I think that concern is fair that some Laker fans have, like how are these guys going to fit in? But again, we are sitting in July. The Lakers have a lot of time to kind of try and figure that out. And it is kind of funny because KCP was at the game yesterday,
right?
And I just forgot to even mention KCP from a shooting perspective and a defensive perspective. They'll be depending on him as well to hit jumpers.
You know what? Let's talk about KCP for a second because there was a ton of frustration with him early on in the season. He struggled, and then he had that month. It's a lot of shots, a lot of questionable shots,
right.
And then the month of December was disastrous for him. And we know he had some things going on personally, and then once those things went away, he picked it up quite a bit. And I thought a really interesting stat was that if you look at his post All-Star numbers, so after he got through all of his personal issues, he shot 43%. Mm-hmm. He was even with Steph Curry in three-point shooting percentage. Not to say he's Steph Curry in any way, but just that's how good of a three-point shooter he was. So are we buying that? Can KCP be that good of a three-point shooter, or was that just an anomaly contract year situation coming into play?
He's going to get some open shots.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it this year. This year, you're going to have players that are literally looking for any shooter, and KCP is going to be one of those guys that may be left open, and not to say that, or not even left open, but players are creating, and KCP just happens to be sitting in the corner, right, or whatever the case is. I think there's some momentum to that. I think KCP, probably from a comfort level now, second year with the Los Angeles Lakers, has played good minutes with Lonzo, with Kuzma, with Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart. That's another player Lakers will depend on for shots as well. Mm-hmm. But I think KCP can fill that role, and I think there's going to be he's not going to be in a position where there's any pressure on him. All the pressure is going to be on all these other players. I don't want to compare him like J.R. Smith but right, J.R. Smith's role with the Cavs was play defense as best as you possibly can. I think KCP is obviously a better defender than J.R. Smith, but hit your jumper. And J.R. Smith, which is more of a guy that can kind of create on his own, KCP is more of a spot-up player. I think he could fill that role. And I think we saw what he did for a couple of months. That wasn't for a week. That wasn't for 2 weeks. That was long enough to say, I think he could do this on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and if he can shoot with that kind of efficiency, I don't know that he can necessarily hit 43%, but if he's at 40,
yeah,
I mean that's probably the best three-point shooter on the team, and that's I think that would be a real asset to that starting lineup, especially with passers like Lonzo, with a passer like LeBron James out there. He's gonna get those open looks, so I think we could be in for a big season from him, and I liked the deal, $12 million. I think that's perfectly fair for KCP.
It was in the terms and conditions with LeBron. It was like, yeah, we'll bring you LeBron, but there would be a small font that just said "and KCP for $12 million."
That was part of the Clutch Sports brotherhood there, right? They were all.
You know what's funny, Trevor, is we've talked so much about these pieces that have been brought in, and these pieces are more defensive pieces, or at least you think they're more role players, leadership.
Right.
I think where a lot of the offense is going to come from are the players that we've watched for now will be the second year. So Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma, and Brandon Ingram could make up a lot of points for the Lakers. Hart could be that name that nobody's really talking too much about. And when we always talked about the core, we always put him as number 5, right? Like you got through, it was like Ingram, Kuzma, Alonzo, Randall, and then Hart was always the last name that you said.
Yep.
But he also can be a important piece this upcoming season, and he's one of those guys too where you love his competitiveness, you love the way kind of that fiery attitude he has, but he's going to get some open shots, So between him, between KCP, and I know it's crazy to say, the 2 rookies that the Lakers just had, and then Ingram and Kuzma and LeBron, there might be enough offense to go around. I think it's just going to come down to how much and how well these guys can gel together.
It's going to be on Luke Walton to try to put those pieces together and figure it out. And we'll talk about Luke in just a minute, but let's go a little further into Josh Hart. We got to watch him last night taking on the 76ers. He was tremendous.
Rocking the old school hardwood classic Irvin Magic Johnson jersey.
Yep, he was rocking that after the game, before the game as well a little bit. The Irvin Magic Johnson All-Star jersey that he had on. That was awesome. And then during the game, Josh Hart at this point feels like he's too good to be playing in Summer League. When you watch him out there, he's just a level above everybody else. And what I thought was really interesting was afterwards we were interviewing him, and somebody brought up, I don't remember who it was, but brought up how nice Svi Mikhailuk's jumper is and just how smooth it is and everything. It said something to the effect of, are you envious of Mikhailuk's jumper? Or it wasn't those exact words, but that was basically the line of questioning. And Josh Hart kind of gave a funny look and just said, well, I feel like I'm a really good shooter too. He sees himself as being right there, as being that kind of a shooter. What do you see from him for next season? Can he provide that level of shooting from the outside while still playing defense the way we've known him to?
So we were talking about players that come into the league ready.
Yeah.
And Josh Hart is a great example of somebody who goes 4 years in college. He came in ready to, obviously perform in the NBA. And in Summer League, he does look better than a lot of these guys because he's probably 3-4 years older than them, or 2 years older than whatever the case is. But he's also got great experience from a college level, and then he made that transition into the NBA. What we don't point about with Hart, we talk about Lonzo missed 30 games. Ingram missed 23 games. Hart had a stretch there where he missed games as well. But he closed out the season where it was kind of more dependent on him to make things happen. I'm not going to just point out, obviously that last game of the year, you're playing the Clippers, you put up 30-plus points or whatever it was. But you can tell he's comfortable in that role. So what I like about Josh Hart is you can tell instantly when he got into the league that this wasn't a guy that was going to back down or be scared or shy away from other players. That's probably half the battle in the league anyways. It's like mentally, where are these guys? Are they confident enough that it doesn't matter who they're playing against, they're confident enough in themselves that they can make it happen or they could deliver? Hart will be successful because that's his foundation. His foundation is mentally I'm strong. Mentally I know I can make this happen. Mentally I know I belong. He also looks wider this year. He looks like he's got stronger, and I know he spent a lot of time in the gym. And we've heard a number of the different people from the Lakers front office talk about how all the young kids have, but Josh Hart specifically spent a lot of time in the weight room. I'm excited to see Josh Hart. Anytime you hear trade rumors, you always hear kind of Hart's name.
Yeah, it gets thrown in. Yep.
And it's kind of thrown in as I don't want to say it's like an add-on, an addition, or anything like that. But I'm sure there are teams out there that are very well aware the type of value that he can bring. And I'm sure the Lakers are very well aware that if something ever does go down, we like to keep Hart as somebody that stays with the Lakers.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a quick Josh Hart story for before we move on here to the next player. But Josh Hart, second game of the season. Lakers were in Phoenix. And this was the game Lonzo almost had a triple-double. They picked up a win. Remember before the game, Rob Pelinka was nervous because they had gotten blown out by the Clippers opening night, and then they went to Phoenix to go play in this game, and he was hoping for a good performance. Josh Hart didn't play, didn't get on the floor, and I was talking to him after the game, and I said, Josh, this was a game that ended up being like 130 to 125 or something, not a lot of defense being played. And I asked him, I said, Josh, what can you do defensively that can help the team? And he just looked at me and said, well, I'm the best defender on the team. So, and this is, he's 3 months into his Lakers career. He's a rookie, and he's already got that confidence. He already feels like, and you kind of spoke to this, he's already got that feeling that he belongs. It's not like he's got to prove himself. He's already there, and now he's just building on that base that he's got, which is, impressive for a guy like Hart.
There's going to be a number of players this season that, have obviously never been in the playoffs, never had playoff experience, but Hart's one of those guys that I could see in towards the end of games, and whatever you need him to do, he'll make it happen. I know there's been some comparisons too, and it's not fair, obviously, but to say he's Derek Fisher-esque, or he could be like a Derek Fisher player. I think what people mean when they say that is Derek Fisher, in the beginning of his career, when he was just a few years in or whatever, there were a lot of key moments Derek Fisher was a part of, and then he became a Laker legend because of what he delivered over his career. But Hart is one of those players that I can see where big moments will not affect him.
Right.
Big moments won't get to him. hostile situations, tough road playoff games. I could see Hart thriving in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, he dealt with it in college. Now the spotlight's on him with the Lakers, and he seems to be thriving. One guy who just got thrust into the spotlight, Isaac Bonga, right? I mean, he came in, started Summer League off. He had, according to Miles Simon, the Summer League coach, he had about 25 minutes of practice with the team.
Yeah, you got to get in there. You got the whole game.
You're good. Hop in. What was your take? What did you think about his debut?
Raw. You could tell, very, very raw. A player that the Lakers will not depend on right away. It's going to be one of those projects for the Lakers. And look, he's a big point guard. And I think he had 7 turnovers.
Yeah, we were counting them there.
So obviously he's raw. Obviously it's one of those players that the Lakers will take a chance on and see. I've always liked European players. He's out of Germany. I've always liked kind of their style of basketball, their knowledge of the game. It certainly kind of brings a different element to the NBA. And the Lakers, I mean, with all their picks this year, they were all foreign players or at least have foreign backgrounds with all their draft picks. So certainly a little bit more international flair. That's what's great about the Summer League is you can see these guys and you can finally get a chance to see what they could potentially look like, because once the season rolls around in training camp and preseason, they probably won't get nearly as many minutes as they're going to get in Summer League.
Now, you and I at the game, we were about 10 yards off the floor.
Yeah,
and we're sitting there, we're up close. I knew that Bonga was long, lanky, but it was still striking to me.
He kept going.
I mean, his arms just don't stop. And his height, I mean, he was eye to eye with all the centers. That physical profile, I think that's what the Lakers see in him. They've got that length, that size, plus the ability. He really does. You can see he's thinking as a point guard out there, and I think that's intriguing.
Well, you got a good opportunity now over these. So they play tonight. They'll play again on Tuesday. He'll get a good opportunity to go kind of get his second round, his third round. Yeah. The more he just gets some PT and gets some playing time, he's going to learn some stuff every single game. And when you're that raw and you're that young, that's all so important right now. And I think he'll get some of that those reps here in the Summer League.
Absolutely. One guy that had the arena rocking last night.
Yeah.
Mo Wagner. I mean, this guy is just pure energy.
There were defense chats in the Summer League.
In Summer League,
in the first half.
There is no defense in Summer League, and Mo Wagner.
Yeah. So what's happening here?
Mo Wagner, man, he's everywhere.
Yeah.
He's just this ball of energy that's all over the floor. He's making big plays, and he's diving on the court like it's the NCAA Finals and it's a Summer League game. What do you think? What do the Lakers get? Is this another first-round steal for them? Maybe a bit early to say that, but what's your take on what he's done so far?
I love it. I love that. Actually says so much about a person who's in Summer League, who's drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers, and is full throttle, doing everything he possibly can to win a basketball game. I'm sure that's why he's on the Lakers. That he did a workout, obviously in June, and then he was asked to come in for a second workout. And some of the attributes that the organization liked in the front office was some of the things that you were just talking about. And I'm sure that's all he knows. He just knows that. He just knows to give it everything he's got. Kind of one of those players, too, from a crowd perspective. I'm sure he'll fire up Laker fans all season long. If it's not him, it might be Lance Stevenson. It might be one of these other players. But that's why he's going to be in the league. And I've always appreciated and respected people that do those small things. And it's very easy these days in sports for these athletes to say, no, I'm not going to dive for a loose ball, or I don't know, just in their mind. I think there's certain organizations that you're going to see somebody kind of go a little extra effort, and maybe that same player, if they were with a different organization, wouldn't offer that. I love seeing it. I love seeing it in Summer League, and I think that as much and as young as this kid is, he's going to be put into the fire, and we're going to have a good idea. He'll be different, I think, than some of the other rookies that are out there that are drafted in the 20s. Lakers are going to need him. They're going to depend on him to play a role this year. And if he from just a pure effort standpoint, offers that kind of effort that he did yesterday, he'll obviously become a fan favorite. But he's got game, too. I mean, yesterday he's had... I don't know, maybe he was 27 feet out, takes the dribble in, and then just pulls up three-pointer top of the key and drains it. That's not an easy shot. That's certainly somebody you can tell he has an offensive repertoire.
Absolutely, yeah. And he's got the ability to put the ball on the floor when he's on the perimeter, which is a really nice feature to his game.
The footwork, too.
Yes, yeah. When defenders close out on him, he's got the ability to go and attack the rim, and that's not something that a lot of bigs can do. Mm-hmm. Speaking of guys that had the Summer League just rocking last night, Svi Mikhailuk.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, every time he pulled up for a jumper, the entire crowd, he's shouting, Svi! Everybody's getting into it. What a pick. I mean, late in the second round, and I think you can make a real argument that he's the best shooter in the draft.
He's got, that's right, you mentioned that yesterday, like to have somebody, that late in the draft get drafted, and that's his strongest attribute, is he's probably the best shooter out of all the players that were drafted. He's got kind of a look to him and an attitude too. It's like, I don't know if it's similar to Josh Hart, but just kind of those, that's what I do.
Yeah.
Like I just, you give me the ball and I'm open and I pull. I'm a trigger guy. I like the fact too that he's going to be on a team that has so many different passers. He's going to be on a team that's going to be looking for him specifically in certain predicaments and spots. And if you do that on a consistent basis in the NBA, you'll make a great living. And if he's a player that on a consistent basis can hit shots and hit open jumpers and everything else and just hold his own as best as he can on the defensive side, he'll be in the league for 10 years. So what the Lakers got from his draft selection, we'll have to kind of wait and see. But I think Laker fans will be excited to see from what we saw yesterday. If people didn't watch that Summer League game, watch some of these games, because he's certainly a pure shooter.
9 rebounds in the game.
That's right. 17 and 9.
That's impressive. I mean, he's stranger than, I'm sure this is fairly common just in the general population, but in the NBA world it's not, where his wingspan is actually shorter than the average wingspan would be. We have these guys who have crazy Brandon Ingram, 6'9" with a 7'4" wingspan. Mikhailuk is actually a little bit shorter than his height, so but he makes up for that. He's more athletic than you would think. And I like the way that he gets in the paint and he battles, and
he was aggressive.
He goes after it.
Takes the ball to the basket, puts the ball on the ground. That will only help him in his overall game, because if he's just a pure outside shooter, defenses will play him to say, okay, we'll drive the ball. But if he has that as one of his strong suits as well, he'll get to the basket. But it is funny to hear that, because I remember Jay Billis during the draft talking about his wingspan and basically saying, in a nutshell, I don't know if I know of many players in the NBA where their wingspan is shorter than them.
Right.
He almost was making a joke out of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jay, we just drafted him. Relax. But the 9 rebounds was impressive, and I'm looking forward to see what he can do the rest of the Summer League.
So let's wrap up by kind of just putting a bow on all this and looking at the pieces the team's put together.
Yeah.
And now Luke Walton has got to make something out of this.
Yeah.
How much different is his job this year compared to last year?
A world of difference.
Right.
It's going to be completely different. He won 26 games his first year. He won 35 games his second year, and there was never really any expectations. I was trying to use like this analogy. It's the Lakers front office came in, this new front office with Magic and Pelinka, and then Coach Luke Walton. Everybody kind of came in when the market was just at its absolute low, right? Buy now. If you're going to buy a home, buy it at its absolute low. But what starts happening is, as the market just kind of starts to rise again, expectations change. Coach Luke Walton will be in the first time of his coaching career, and I know he's only been coaching for 2 years. There's some serious expectations now. I'm not saying they got to win an NBA championship, but you have all these different characters that are going to be a part of this team. You have LeBron James, arguably the most popular athlete in the world, on arguably the most popular franchise in the world. So there's going to be a lot of eyes watching this Lakers team and this Lakers franchise. And the one role that always is the scapegoat is typically your head coach. If something goes wrong, you blame the head coach. If something goes right, you never talk about the coach. Like that doesn't...
It's not going to be LeBron.
They don't usually get the praise, but they usually get the criticism.
Yep.
And that's what Luke Walton's got in front of him. Now, I say all that not as a beware or as a caution. I say that in a sense of, this finally shows that the organization, you want the pressure. You want to know that you want those feelings again where you're in the playoffs, nervous as hell, that are the Lakers going to win or are they not going to win?
Right.
Because we obviously haven't had that feeling in a long time. But I think with Coach Luke Walton, he's got a lot on him. And I'm looking forward to see what he does. And I think from a character perspective, a former player who was on teams with a lot of misfits, I think he's got a lot of experience that we don't even know just because of how long he's been around the NBA.
Sure. I mean, so much of his job is going to be managing the egos, managing all the expectations and all of that. But you look at what he's done, right? Even as a player, it's all kind of built up to this. He watched Phil Jackson deal with Shaq and Kobe, right? He watched Phil kind of manage all of these guys. Then he's with Steve Kerr, right? He even spent some time working in the G League, and as I recall, the D League, and he's worked with the Lakers for a long time here. And then he's working under Steve Kerr. He takes over the Golden State Warriors, who are full of stars. Right. He's dealt with stars in this league.
He's ready for it.
He's ready. Yeah, I mean, it's all built up to this point. Yes, he's young. He was in the same draft class as LeBron James, but it feels like everything has been moving up to this moment, and now he's got his chance.
Trevor, his coaching branch is so interesting because, I mean, look, first of all, his dad is Bill Walton, who was coached by Jack Ramsey, who was coached by Red Auerbach, or a part of with the Celtics with Red Auerbach. He was coached by Lute Olson when he was at Arizona. Then the Phil Jackson tree. Steve Kerr we talk about, who was coached by Greg Popovich. Like, literally, there is not probably another individual who's at his age that has so many interesting, legendary coaches either tied completely with him or through some of these branches. So he'll have a challenge in front of him, but I think he'll be ready for it.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. We went through the entire roster pretty much and talked about the coaching staff and everything. Alan, thanks so much for coming on and helping me break through all this.
Appreciate you coming on. And then you hop on Monday night. We'll do a Lakers talk on ESPN LA so people can catch that. We'll talk a little bit more Lakers basketball.
Yeah, we'll be at the MGM on Monday night. So if you guys are in Vegas, you're catching Summer League, make sure you stop by, say hi. We're not shy people. Come on by. So that'll wrap things up for today. Guys, make sure you head over to LakersNation.com for all the latest breaking Lakers news. And don't forget to go rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes. Till next time, see ya.